The Shadow and Bone books have been around a while and they're very popular. And recently, over the past few years, Netflix has made a TV show out of it, a streaming series. They're in season two, they've done season two, and we're going to be talking about season one today with a friend of mine, author Sofia Simpson. She's got a new book out. We'll talk about that. And 4 tips for writing that we can learn from the first season of Shadow and Bone. But before you do that, go into the description, click on the link there for a free fantasy ebook, epic fantasy ebook. I've also got a link to my new book out there, and you also see a link for Sophia and some of her stuff. All right, so let's get to it. Welcome back to Great Stories Change the World, the YouTube channel where a science fiction fantasy author, that's me, looks at novels, movies, TV shows, other types of stories to look at how people tell great stories, or maybe how they don't tell great stories, and try to help us as writers and creators to do the hard work of telling great stories because they do have a lot of great impact. So today I have with me a friend, Sofia Simpson. How you doing, Sophia?
I'm great. Thank you, Britt. Good to be here.
I have a guest on today, like I've had for other things, and we're going to be going over a TV show this time, which is going to be really interesting. But first, Sophia, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself? What do you write and all that stuff?
Well, I'm a young adult Christian fantasy author, which I feel is an up and coming genre in our day and age. And I am super excited because I just had a book come out, which is book two of my an elemental series called Torch. And it's the continuation of Bella and Link and their love story. And they hit some snags in this book, quite a few, including a love triangle. So,
Ooh. Now you said snags, not snacks, right? Like because
right, snags. Yeah,
I mean,
pretty. I'm treating that lightly. They hit some major roadblocks.
yeah. I just thought maybe the book was about snacking, like Scooby Doo or something.
Ah,
No, so
no, they're on a road trip
ooh,
to the
that's
upper
right.
part of Canada.
Yeah.
And they're on their way to an off the grid community, which was a lot of fun to research and figure out how to live off the grid and what
Hmm.
that looks like and actually feels like. And to get there, it's a pretty dangerous journey, and they hit a lot of problems.
Yeah. So Sophia is in one of my writing groups, is in a writing group with me, and I have read parts of this story. I haven't read the whole thing quite yet. I do have it. I did get it. I got the ebook the other day. And so I started it. Kind of read through it. And so she's been sharing stuff from book one and now book two in our writing group where we, talk about what we write and try to give each other some cool constructive criticism and challenges to maybe make it better. So,
Mhm.
all failure is all on Sophia. All success is due to me. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm really trying to say because that's the way it works, right? No, no. So she's a great writer, and we were talking the other day about some things, and I just was like, well, your book's coming out. We should have you on my YouTube channel and talk about something that you think is good writing and maybe some things that you've learned from it. And so, what did you pick?
Shadow and Bone. It's a TV series, fantasy TV series based on the books by Leah Berdarko. I'm gonna wreck her name. Um, but yeah, she Shadow and Bone series. 2 seasons have been out, but I think we're gonna talk about season one,
Yeah, we'll talk about
right?
season one. Now, have you read the books?
I have. It's been years. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, it's been years since I've read the book. So I actually forgot everything. You know how that happens. Like,
Mm-hmm.
know, you can, I love when that, I actually love when that happens because then I can reread the book and it's like all new. So I'm probably going to reread the series, but they've done a fantastic job with the live action.
Yeah, no,
As
I liked the first season. I haven't I kind of started the second season and didn't really get into it as much right away, but my daughter loves it.
mm,
My daughter Elisha loves the second season. She was like, "No, it's so good." So now it's a
yeah,
fairly popular series from what I understand. Like she's got her own world, and there's other I think there's other books with other characters in this world, sort
yeah.
of thing.
Six of Crows. Yeah.
And so that, you know, I don't know how much they're kind of sticking to one book or whether they're taking it from some of these other materials, but I loved the first season. I thought the first season was it had a great arc. It escalated
Hmm.
and a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about here today. And so let's get into it. So
Okay.
how many reasons you got that you like it?
Well, I wrote down
You wrote
for
down
as
four.
far as for writing things that helped me as a writer.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so of course my favorite character, and it's not because he's like handsome or anything, I swear. It's the general. He's one of my favorite actors, and but he gets to be more so in season two, but he is the villain of the story. And I one thing I always thought I'm actually seeing more of now is that the villain has a story.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so black and white anymore. People have really started to examine. I mean, you look at Wicked, you know, the uh um Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. So people have like love the story of the Wicked Witch of the West or East. I forget which one, but same situation. The villain, he always has a story, and it makes for a great backstory to tell um, what made them that way. And, you know, there has to be reasons that someone just turns like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually pretty fascinating. I mean, another example is the new Hunger Games movie, A Ballad of Song and
Snakes or
Snakes,
something.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
name of it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So they did the same thing. They went back on what happened with General Snow or President Snow. Have you seen that movie by
I
any
haven't seen it
chance?
yet. I've heard good things about it though.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So it was fantastically done. And I'm really loving these villain stories because they're not born evil. So what happened? You know, what catastrophic event happened in their life to make them do these dark things, you know? And so
Hmm.
season one really doesn't go into a lot of General Kerrigan, his backstory, but you definitely start seeing it and the more you go along with the story, the more the first book, second book, more it all starts making sense. So, and I love when an author can craft that kind of world where, you know, you find out in later books this is not such a good character, but this is why. And
Hmm.
so things that had happened in books one and two suddenly make sense. And it makes the story that much richer and that much deeper. So
Hmm.
that was my
Well,
first thing.
that's a good point because as we you know write our stories,
Mhm.
there was a time period when you just said, well, this is the bad guy. He's got the mustache. He's got the black hat. He's just bad, and he's just kind of accepted that he's bad. But I think
Mhm.
it's more complex and it's a more effective story when you try to give some humanity to the antagonist
Mhm.
because nobody
Right.
thinks they're being a bad guy. Like
Mm.
nobody thinks they're being a villain. Like very rarely do people think I'm just going to be a villain. And sometimes
Mm.
or if they do, they feel like there's a good reason, right? Like
Mm.
why they are hurting people. Like they deserve to be hurt or something like that. And
Mm.
and then when you get into that sort of humanity, here's why it's important. Here's why it makes it a great story is because when we understand why the villain does bad things, then we can examine our own lives and
Mm,
think, what would I do? Like once I
mhm.
understand why he or she does what they do, hopefully we don't justify bad things or hurting people,
Right,
but we
right.
say, well, how, and how, what kind of choices would I make? And because we do the same thing with heroes, right? With heroes, we think, oh, what would I
Mm,
do? And I would like to be that
yeah,
kind of person. And it gives us those sort of ways that we examine our own sort of hearts and motives in our own lives. And so that's why humanizing the villain is such an important sort of idea as we're writing the story.
yeah.
So I think that's a good point that you make right there. All right, so what's number two?
Well, I'm a romance writer, and I have to comment. In our Word Weavers group, I thought probably one of the funniest nights I've had is when you read, I still laugh about it, when you read one of my kissing scenes
Oh
in the second
yeah.
book. It just was so funny. It was so funny. Me and Jennifer both were giggling at that. But so I write romance and I love it. I enjoy it. I have a beautiful love story of my own. And so I just love examining those things. So the trope, best friends to lovers, is
Hmm.
a really fun trope. I did that in my first book that I published, Dreamweaver. And I haven't gone back to it, but I probably will. And this is one of those where this story, Shadow and Bone, has a best friends to lovers trope. And Mal and Alina, they just have such an easy friendship. They've been best friends since they were little in an orphanage. And what more bonding can you do with someone when you have no one else in the world to
Hmm.
love you but your best friend? And that's what they have with each other. So their trust level is astronomical. They would do anything for each other. And it's just, you get into this, you fall into their story in season one, especially, and season two, but you fall into their story and you just easily ride this storyline because it's so believable. It's so easy to figure out because the very first opening scene of Shadow and Bone is they're at an orphanage, they're kids, and they're
Hmm.
hiding from the people coming to see if they have any gifts. So, and they hide because they don't want to be separated. Because if one of them has a gift and the other one doesn't, they'll forever be separated. So they like hide from this interrogation so they won't ever be apart. So you automatically have this strong friendship and this love. It's almost brother and sister, but they're pretty good at making it so it's not,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that much, not that much. But so and then it just carries with them and as they go along, and there's no one they trust more than each other. So I absolutely love that trust level. It just and their friendship seamlessly blends into a love story. And the little things that they do in the season is they just show moments together where they sit a little closer or they're just having he can find her when no one else can, and he always knows where she is. He's protector. Like it just easily blends into this really cool love story.
Yeah.
So that was another cool part of it.
All right, so here's my question. As a non-romance writer, now I've written
Okay.
romantic things, and so I get it. But so there's this thing in life called the friend zone, right? Putting a guy
Yeah.
in the friend zone, and you see TikTok videos about how do you get out of the friend zone, and you see the movies are like, or in it was in a sitcom recently. I was watching a Scrubs episode where was kind of playing on this, like, if I don't make a move within this amount of time, then I'll be forever stuck in the friend zone. Whatever the
Right.
episode was, basically, if I don't, they almost kissed or whatever, and if I don't kiss her within the next 24 hours, like they were interrupted, and if it doesn't happen within 24 hours, I'll always be in the friend zone. And so there's this idea of the friend zone where, at least from the guy's perspective, and I maybe some women's perspective, where women put the guy in the in the
Hmm.
box of the friend zone. And yet there is this trope of best friends to lovers that is very attractive, obviously, within the romance genre and the romance world. So why is that? So there's this idea of the friend zone. So,
Okay.
but then you look at When Harry Met Sally, or you look at, this Shadow and Bone. Like, what is it about the friends to lovers process that feeds sort of like that romance fantasy that women might have?
Well, that's a really good point. That is a really good, and that's why it's a trope. That's exactly why it's a trope because the watching their journey from friends and then go into something more, that journey right there, that's what gets people reading. That's what gets people watching. That's what gets people like that's the fun of the story. Like what did he do? What did she do? What happened to make them turn from being a best friend or a friend to someone more? And it's that magical adventure that people are sucked into. They want to know how do they break that barrier from friend to something more?
Hmm.
And it's that journey, it's that storyline that people will keep coming back for because they want to know how they did it. You know, what little thing happened, what big thing happened, what spark, when did that spark flare up,
Hmm.
and it's those moments that readers and watchers die for.
They
They
do.
can't wait to find out, when that moment happens. It's magical. It's magical. And uh you love it when it happens in real life. I mean, they say you're the best well, I mean, they say a lot of great marriages started from being friends, first. I know I was friends with my husband first. We weren't best friends, but we were definitely friends for about a year. And it's that getting to know each other and that flirting that, and it's those like I call them magical moments. It's like it's almost mystical, like how, I feel like God brings two people together. That's
Right.
there's
Sure.
no Christian element to Shadow and Bone, but um it's those inspiring moments that people keep coming back for and they want to see what happens next. So
No, so here's my theory, and you tell me what you think of this. So my theory
okay.
is, because you see it a lot. You see it a lot in TV shows, where, oh man, if Ross and Rachel start out as friends, right? Or like Friends is full of
Hmm.
it, right? You have the whole thing with
Sure.
Monica and Chandler, and they were friends first, and
Right.
and and her even telling him at one point all this, I would never with you or something, and not shooting him down, but just kind of talking about the future. And I've seen it in my life, man. I knew some best
Mm.
friends in Korea when I was in Korea, and he tried to go out with her so many times, and she kept shooting him down, and she literally told him, it's never going to happen, and crushed him,
Oh
and
my God.
it was awful. But then, like, she starts coming around because my wife was friends with her. And so she
Mhm.
starts coming around, like, I think I like him now, but I told him never. And it's just this whole like drama when we were overseas as expats. But it's real. So here's my theory. I think great story, the core of any great story is when the main character or characters come to know the truth. So that's
Mhm.
so I'm trying to think about this in the context of a romance. Like, so in the context of a romance, even if you've put this person in the friend zone,
Mhm.
or for a guy, it would be like, I treat her like a sister or a
Mhm.
friend or something. Maybe if, even though
Mhm.
she's not a sister, right? But like, just
Mhm.
like, there's that sort of like, nah, we're not. We're just platonic friends or whatever. But when the truth, something happens, those magical moments, and you're confronted with a truth, which is,
Right.
hey, maybe there's more
Hmm.
to this than I previously thought. And so you're kind of moving from, I know this might sound extreme, but you're moving from a lie or ignorance maybe to the
Right.
truth. And I think that that was always there, that maybe you didn't see it, or, those sort of like elements to it where you just never paid attention to that, or whatever it might be. And I think that that's the sort of journey that, because I think that happens with enemies to lovers too, right? I mean, I thought this was a horrible, awful person, and he or she is a villain, and blah 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 blah. But then you start to see these magical moments that there's maybe more to the story, and it's the same sort of
Right.
arc of coming to the truth. And in this case, it would be that this is a person that I could fall in love with or whatever. All right, we spent a
Yeah.
lot of time on that one, but I just had some, as a non-romance writer, I had some
Yeah,
questions like
that was a good question.
to help me think about it. All right, what's your number three? What's three?
All right. So my third one, well, I just absolutely loved the world building in Shadow and Bone. So you have this place, the opening scene, like I said, was an orphanage. So doesn't give you a lot of world building there, but then you find out that there's this shadow fold and
Mm-hmm.
it's separated the countries from each other where trade is impossible and interactions between the countries are impossible and daring journeys are actually done going through this thing. It's you risk your life even trying to get through because there's all these monsters in the shadow pool that will come down and they're attracted to light and sound especially and they'll literally pick you up off the ship and eat you. So and then you've got this ship, so it's like this really cool like a like a wooden pirate ship almost that sails through the shadow fold with air elementals powering it to push it forward. And it's just
Right.
this really cool, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
imaginative world.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
you've got General Kerrigan who's got fire, and then like Alina who has this um amazing unique one in a million gift that she never even knew she had. That she's a sun summoner, so she's got this power of light. And if you have this, I mean, light actually banishes the creatures. I'm sorry, it doesn't attract them. Light banishes these creatures. And so she's able to get through this fold and get a whole ship through with
Mm-hmm.
no problem. So it's just really cool from beginning all the way through the show. Just showing the different elements of the fantasy aspect to it with the wind gifts, the fire gifts, the sun gifts, and water gifts. And I'm
Yeah.
an elemental. My series
Yeah,
are
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah, yeah,
elementals.
yeah.
So of course this inspired me, in my own story, in my own creativity and imagination. And I absolutely love when they can bring something like that. And it's so interesting. Like, and then you find out in season two how the shadow fold even happened. You gotta watch season two. It's fantastic. It's a good
Okay, cool.
progression of the story. Yeah. So I won't give any spoilers for it, but it's a really good story. And I especially loved how they built it from in the season, one scene to the next. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
very, very well told and very well described. And as far as the show is concerned, very well illustrated
Yeah.
in their CGI and stuff. So
No, no, yeah, the effects are great. I mean, I remember that from season one. The effects are great. The visuals were great, uh,
mm,
and they didn't talk. What I loved about at least the first season was the world just was, and they were in it. Like
mm,
they didn't have to talk about it a lot. They just kind of did it. I mean, like they would explain things here and there, but I think good world building means that you, as the author or writer, know enough about the world that you just live in it. I don't know if that makes
yeah,
sense, but that's good world
yeah,
building where you just, these characters live in this world, and you don't really have to do a lot of explaining because they're
Hmm.
just living in the world, and the reader just goes along with that a lot of times. Or in the show, and from what I see in the show and a little bit in the second season, there's a whole lot of other places and other, countries and other things that she's kind of built out. And I did a lot of that work before, my first fantasy series. Like, I'd spent years on the world,
Wow.
so that even though I was really only in one country, I was talking about things,
Hmm.
because just like we would mention something about France or something about Africa or something just in our world, you can mention
Hmm.
things along the way, and it feels like there's a bigger world out there, even though you don't have
Hmm.
to describe every detail. And I think that the show did a good job at the very least doing that, showing that, like,
Yes.
there's this other world out there when we're focusing on these few characters and this individual story, but there's other characters. There's a whole lot of potentiality. Is that a word? Did I just make a word? There's a lot of potential out there for
Hmm.
storytelling, for us to explore. And I think readers like that. And especially nowadays,
Hmm.
with the influence of Marvel and some of these other properties, it's like, man, you got to have a big story. You got to have a big
Yeah.
world that you can explore if you want to. And it's
Hmm.
because readers more expect that now than they used to, And so
Oh,
anyway,
yeah.
all right. So what's number four?
Well, same, kind of on the same vein. The character building was the ca like I am a big fan of character-driven stories, compared to plot-driven stories. And I think across the board people are. You want
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
connect
yeah.
with that character. You need to connect, or you're disinterested. You shut the TV off, or you close the book, and it's a DNF. You don't finish it. So this definitely did a good job, especially when you go back to when a character is a child. I mean, whose heart doesn't completely rip apart when you see a child in an orphanage? It's just the saddest thing, and it's an immediate connection because you want to know, is she going to be okay? Did she make
Mm-hmm.
it? What'd she do with her life? And so. And not only that, but whenever a character is unaware of a powerful gift that they have, that's just a cool plot line. You, as a reader, get to explore with her. You get to discover with her as she
Mm-hmm.
goes along,
Yeah, that's good.
and it's just so well done. Especially now with my stories, I haven't done that yet. I haven't tried that, but they already are in. They know exactly what they're capable of and all that. But this was really well told in the sense that she had no idea. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said earlier in the podcast, she escape the interrogator or the people who came to find out if she had any gifts from when she was a child, and she always hid from them. So she never knew that she was a sun summoner. And so that's always a fantastic storyline for a reader to discover with the character, that they have this powerful gift. And what could she do with it? What are talk about potential,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So she has all of this, like what is this author going to do with this story? What are they going to do, or what is this season going to do with this powerful gift? I mean, the opportunities alone are endless,
Yeah.
and it's just fun. It's a lot of fun to find out what she's capable of
Mm.
and what she's going to do with this gift. So
No,
makes for
and
a good
and
story.
and it's basic hero journey stuff. And
Yeah,
here's
yeah,
why we love it. Here's why readers love it, is because most of us want to believe there's more to us than we know,
yeah.
which, if you do believe in God, is true. There's more to us than you
Yes,
know. Like, there's more to us than we realize, and
right.
that we have the potential for more than what people think or our background says about us. And, like, like even apart from Christianity, people want to believe this. People want to believe that it doesn't, my background doesn't matter, my, my race, my gender, whatever, like all of this stuff doesn't matter. I'm capable of great things if I will just begin this journey. And that's the hero's journey. And so we all love
Mhm.
that, but it also gives us as writers, when we do that, because I just recently watched Star Wars Episode 4, The New Hope. Right? We recently watched it. I'm working through some of the Star Wars movies, and
Okay.
it's fun just because it's every now and then I go through Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. I go through some of these things just to kind of look
Yeah.
at them afresh, especially since I'm learning more and more about writing and all of that stuff. And so as a writer, like Luke doesn't know that he can use the Force. He doesn't know.
Right.
He doesn't
Right.
know about his father. He doesn't know about the Jedi. There's a lot of stuff he doesn't know. So
Right.
his ignorance in that means
Mhm.
he has to discover things about, and he has to learn things in order to go to the on the next step, in order to complete his journey, in order to
Mhm.
destroy the Death Star and save the planet. He
Right.
had, or not the universe, the galaxy, whatever. He has to learn how to use the Force, not the computer, whatever. Well, he's got to do all these things. And so my point is that as writers, when we place, it's kind of the fish out of water thing. When we place this character in a world that they're ignorant of, we don't have to
Mhm.
do a lot of explaining, because like explaining is boring. But if the character is experiencing it and learning, and because they have to, it makes it easy for them to get into the world and get into the things, which is why you read, or you're reading, or in the Living Stone that I wrote. I really wanted to make Caleb the main character, but I was like, I need a character that doesn't know
Mm.
this world. So I
Mm.
came up with Aiden. Like, I
Mhm.
need a character that doesn't know
Mhm.
this world, that doesn't know the mission, that doesn't know the background, that doesn't know all these things, because
Mhm.
because now he's an interesting character. But when people read The Living Stone, they're like, I think my favorite character is Aiden. And I think that's because, like,
Mhm.
he's the one learning, he's the one exploring, he's the one doing all this stuff that people really connect to, because we're curious people, man. We want to connect, we want to explore. So no, I think
It's
that's a great
true.
point. She does a great
Mhm.
she does a great job with that.
It's growth. I mean, anytime we all of us, creators, non-creators, any of us all want to grow and be better people. The older and older we get, older and older we get. That's whether you know God or you don't know God. That's just a general thing. So
Right.
I think anytime you introduce that into a story where a character gets to grow and gets to alter who they are based on what they learn, and change their mind and change their concepts and change their whole idea of what the world is all about. Anytime you get to follow that with the character is
Right.
great,
Yeah, it
great,
is it
and
is great.
and you, I mean, that's what an arc is. That's
Yeah.
what a character arc is. It's not going from point A to point B. It's how did they get there? Like how,
Right.
what made them who they are to be this person that the author's trying to make them be, and
Hmm.
so and that's something I'm really drawn to that. And I was drawn to that in Alina in this story in Shadow and Bone. But as an author, I'm really learning more and more and more how important that is, and
Yep.
how to do it. How do you
Yep.
do that as an author, as a creator? How do you get that arc?
Hmm.
Um, in my stories, they're Christian fantasies, so I always have like a theme that kind of permeates the story. In Terra Book One, it's the theme of forgiveness. So, and I introduce how God helps her forgive these fire elementals who burned down her home. And
Hmm.
it takes the whole book for her to get there, but she eventually does. And it's this transformative moment, And so
Mm-hmm.
I love those. I love working around those themes. I just wrote a
Yep.
novella about a side character in the series, Aaliyah, and she has this potential to lie. And she's constantly caught in the traps of her lies. And so in that little novella, that was her redeeming arc, was her coming to the point where she's like, God, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
be honest and open, and I'm going to deal with things as they come and not try to hide behind my lies. And so
Mm-hmm.
I love those, like, as a Christian author, I love those transformative moments where God can come in, step in, and change your life and
Mm-hmm.
help you become the woman or the man that He designed you to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I know Christian fantasy is not a very popular genre, and I wish it was. Unfortunately, the challenges I'm facing are Christians look at fantasy and say, "Oh, there should never be any magic in a story because that's not biblical." And so I've been told that by my own flesh and blood, actually. So, and I have to come back to that and say, God is the God of imagination. I mean, how you don't think He's going to let us use His imagination to tell a story? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's crazy talk. That's crazy talk. But then you have non-Christians who look at Christian fantasy and say, I don't want to read a Christian book. So I'm definitely on a very uphill battle trying to fight these stigmas.
Right.
But I love writing Christian fantasy. And I'm not out here just to sell books. I'm here to tell a story and to tell how God can live in your life, even in a fantasy story. What does that look
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah,
with
yeah,
when
yeah.
God lives in you and God is
Yeah.
a part of who you are as a person?
Yeah.
So I love telling that. Sorry, I deviated.
No, no, I think that's great. And and that's why we enjoy stories, I think, in general, is because we
Yeah.
we do want to believe that there's something bigger than us. We do, whether it's God or not, for people like us it is, but we do. I mean,
Hmm.
there's a reason why even a lot of non-Christians read Lord of the Rings or Narnia or something, because there's that element of there is something bigger than them. There's a purpose. They're part of a bigger story, and we
Hmm.
want that. I mean, we all want that. So no, I love that. And so as we're kind of closing up here, where can people find more about you? What's your website, and how can people find your book?
My website is sophiasimpson.com, with Sophia with an F. So you can find me there. All my books are there. You can sign up for my newsletter, get that free novella right there on the front page. uh, You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, as Sophia Simpson Author. So I'm there on those social media sites. I'm pretty good about interacting with anyone who contacts me. So feel free to reach out if you have questions about my books or questions about anything I've said. And I'm happy to respond.
Hmm.
I love it when people ask me questions.
Awesome. And and where can they get the book? Is there a preferred place, like Amazon, your website? Like, where's your
Yeah,
preferred place?
Amazon is the preferred site. You can get a signed copy of my books on Etsy. So you just have to look up Sophia Simpson and the name of my book. I've got Dreamweaver and Torch or Terra on there, and Torch is coming soon. Now that I have the book, I just got them in yesterday. I can put them up on Etsy. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, so you can find the paperback on Books A Million and Barnes and Noble, but the ebook is only available on Amazon, and it is
Hmm.
Kindle Unlimited. So if you have a Kindle Unlimited account, you can read both my books, Terra and
Booyah.
Torch. Yeah.
Page counts, baby. All
I
right.
know.
Well, I'm gonna put your website and at least the link to Amazon for the book there in the notes. I was gonna say show notes, but that's for podcasts. In the description, in the YouTube description down there, I'll put it in there, and then people can find your links there. Well, this has been fun. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Britt. I had a lot of fun as always talking with you, and it's fun talking about one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, and thanks for schooling me a little bit on romance because, like I told you, I'm trying to put some romance in my next book. So in the fantasy genre.
Oh,
So
I'm
so you
dying for
help
that.
you help me. All right, you have a good one. All right.
Thank you, Britt. Okay, you too.